Jake Morrison had learned 3 things about living on Kepler Station: always keep your tools clean, never make eye contact with the Altairians during their meditation hour, and absolutely never let anyone see you sweat. The third rule was the most important, because sweat meant fear, and fear meant you were just another scared Deathworlder who'd crawled out of Earth's gravity well with nothing but bad manners and worse hygiene. He wasn't sweating now, crouched inside the atmospheric processor housing on level 7, recalibrating oxygen mixtures for the 3rd time this week. The Valaxians kept complaining about the air quality, but Jake suspected they just enjoyed watching humans scramble to fix problems that didn't exist. It was a power game, and he was excellent at power games. He just preferred playing them quietly. "Daddy, why do the blue people have gills if they don't swim?" Zara was 8, brilliant, and absolutely fearless in the way that only children raised in space could be. She sat cross-legged on the deck plating, her tablet displaying a rotating hologram of aquatic Valaxian respiratory systems. Her school project, apparently. Jake had stopped being surprised by what passed for elementary education when your classmates breathed methane and thought gravity was optional. "Because evolution doesn't clean up after itself, sweetheart," Jake said, not looking up from his work. "Just like how we still have an appendix even though we don't need it anymore. Evolution sounds lazy. Evolution is the ultimate engineer. It works with what it's got, not what it wants." He sealed the processor housing and stood, brushing dust off his maintenance coveralls. The Kepler Station insignia on his chest was faded from too many wash cycles, but it still marked him as human. Still marked him as tolerated. The station hummed around them, a gentle vibration that most species found soothing. Humans, of course, were the exception. They'd evolved on a world where gentle vibrations usually meant something was about to try to kill you. Jake found it oddly comforting, like a lullaby sung by a barely contained fusion reactor. "Mr. Morrison." The voice belonged to Educator Thane, a centaurian with silver skin and eyes like black holes. She floated down the corridor toward them, her bioluminescent patches flickering in what Jake had learned was polite concern. "I apologize for the interruption, but we need Zara back in the classroom. Today is Cultural Heritage Presentation Day." Zara's face lit up. "Can I show them my Earth rocks?" "Of course." Thane's patches shifted to warm gold. "The other children are very curious about Deathworld geology." Jake watched them go, noting how Thane kept herself positioned between Zara and the corridor walls. Protective instinct, probably unconscious. Most species developed it around human children. Something about their size and fragility triggered ancient nurturing responses. It was one of the few advantages of being from the galaxy's most notorious murder planet. He was halfway through the 2nd atmospheric processor when his comm chirped. "Emergency frequency." Jake's blood temperature dropped 2 degrees, a physiological response he'd never quite managed to suppress. "Morrison here. Jake, you need to get to the school. Now." The voice belonged to Commander Singh, Station Security. Human, like Jake. Also former military, though they'd never discussed which branch. "It's about Zara." Jake was moving before Singh finished speaking, his tool belt clattering against his hip as he ran. The corridors of Kepler Station blurred past him, gleaming metal and soft lighting designed to be welcoming to dozens of different species. He passed methane breathers in their environmental suits, a group of crystalline entities that hummed harmonically as they moved, and several Altairians who stepped aside with the casual disdain of the genuinely superior. The school was in the station's educational sector, a sprawling complex designed to accommodate the diverse needs of interspecies learning. Jake had always been proud that Zara thrived here, that she could make friends with beings who didn't even share her basic biology. It had seemed like progress. Like hope. He found the crowd first. 24 alien parents clustered around classroom 7 beta, their various forms of agitation creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and bioluminescent displays. At the center of it all stood Counselor Velthek, an Altairian bureaucrat whose species had mastered faster-than-light travel while humans were still figuring out agriculture. His 4 arms were gesticulating wildly, his translator collar working overtime to convert his rapid-fire speech into standard galactic. Barbaric. Velthek was saying. Absolutely barbaric. This is what happens when you allow Deathworlders into civilized spaces. They have no respect for culture, no understanding of value. Jake pushed through the crowd, his heart rate climbing. Through the classroom's transparent aluminum walls, he could see Zara sitting alone at a corner desk, her small shoulders shaking. Educator Thane was beside her, patches flickering between protective orange and distressed purple. What happened? Jake asked, though he was already starting to understand. The broken pieces of something ornate and blue scattered across the floor. The way the other children were pressed against the far wall, staring at Zara like she was a bomb that might go off again. Your spawn, Velthek spat the word like it tasted bad, destroyed a priceless Altairian harmony crystal. 5,000 years old. A relic of our most sacred ceremonies. And what does she do when confronted with her crime? He pointed at Zara with one of his elongated fingers. She cries. Like the primitive little savage she is. The corridor went very quiet. Jake Morrison, maintenance worker and model citizen, stood perfectly still. Jake had been still like this exactly 3 times in his life. Once during the Titan Rebellion, when a sniper had him in crosshairs for 47 minutes. Once during his daughter's birth, when the doctors said there might be complications. And once during his psychological evaluation for civilian reintegration, when they'd asked him what he missed most about active duty. He'd lied during that evaluation. What he missed wasn't the adrenaline or the brotherhood or the clear moral lines. What he missed was the permission. The socially sanctioned moment when controlled violence became not just acceptable, but necessary. Counselor Velthek, Jake said, his voice carrying the same tone he'd used to discuss atmospheric pressure ratios. I think there's been a misunderstanding. Velthek's 4 eyes fixed on him with the kind of disdain reserved for particularly stubborn stains. The only misunderstanding is your species' presence in civilized space. Look at what your offspring has done. Centuries of cultural heritage, destroyed by Deathworlder clumsiness. She's 8, Jake said. Still calm. Still perfectly controlled. Age is no excuse for savagery. That was when Jake smiled. It wasn't a particularly threatening expression, just a slight upturn at the corners of his mouth. But something about it made the corridor temperature seem to drop several degrees. The other parents stopped their chatter. Even the station's ambient humming seemed to quiet. You know what's interesting about Deathworlders, counselor? Jake stepped closer, his hands clasped behind his back in a posture that looked respectful but positioned his weight perfectly for movement. Everyone assumes we're dangerous because we're violent. But that's not really accurate. Velthek's chromatophores shifted to aggressive purple. Are you threatening me, human? Oh, no. I'm educating you. Jake's voice remained conversational, friendly even. See, violence is just a tool. What makes Deathworlders dangerous is pattern recognition. We evolved on a planet where everything wanted to kill us, so we got very, very good at reading threats. He gestured to the crowd of alien parents, his movement casual but encompassing. Take this situation, for instance. I can tell that Educator Thane's bioluminescence patterns indicate she's trying to protect my daughter from adult aggression. I can see that the Valaxian parent over there has moved her children behind her because she recognizes predatory behavior when she sees it. And I can observe that you, counselor, have positioned yourself to block the classroom entrance. Velthek's translator collar struggled with Jake's increasingly technical vocabulary. What are you implying? I'm implying that you've made my daughter cry. Jake's smile never wavered. And I'm wondering if you've considered the full implications of that action. It was an accident. Educator Thane's patches flashed urgent yellow. The crystal was poorly secured, and Zara was only trying to. Silence. Velthek's voice rose to a shriek. I will not have Deathworlder sympathizers excusing this barbarism. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That's fascinating. Because I've just accessed the station's educational database through my maintenance clearance. He tapped his temple, where a barely visible neural interface flickered. Turns out your priceless cultural artifact is actually a third-generation reproduction, manufactured on Altair Prime approximately 6 months ago. Retail value: 47 credits. The corridor went dead silent. But here's the really interesting part, Jake continued, his voice still pleasant and conversational. I've also accessed your personal files, counselor. Seems you've been skimming funding from the cultural exchange program. Claiming expensive artifacts were destroyed or damaged, then pocketing the insurance payouts while displaying cheap reproductions. Velthek's chromatophores began cycling through colors rapidly. That's classified information. You have no authority to. Actually, I do. Jake's smile widened slightly. See, I wasn't entirely honest on my civilian integration paperwork. I'm not just a maintenance worker. I'm a maintenance worker with level 7 security clearance and neural interface capabilities that your species hasn't even figured out how to build yet. He leaned forward slightly, and suddenly the corridor felt very small. I've been watching you for 6 months, counselor. You, and your little insurance fraud scheme, and the way you treat the younger species like we're pets that might bite. I've been calm about it because that's what civilized people do. They follow procedures. They file reports. They trust the system. But then, Jake's voice dropped to barely above a whisper, you made my little girl cry. Velthek took a step backward. I demand you be arrested. This is intimidation. Harassment. This is education, Jake corrected gently. You see, Deathworlders don't survive by being the strongest or the fastest. We survive by being adaptable. By learning. By remembering. His neural interface pulsed soft blue. And right now, I'm teaching the entire station something very important about human protective instincts. He straightened up, hands still clasped behind his back. The insurance investigation will begin tomorrow morning. Your personal files have been forwarded to Station Command, along with evidence of 17 separate instances of fraud. Your diplomatic immunity has been revoked by your own government, apparently they don't approve of embezzlement either. Velthek's translator collar was sparking now, overloaded by his rapid speech. This is impossible. You're a maintenance worker. A nobody. I'm a father, Jake said simply. And on my death world, that's the most dangerous thing you can be. He walked past the stunned Altairian, through the crowd of suddenly respectful alien parents, and into the classroom where his daughter sat crying. He knelt beside her chair, and when she looked up at him with tear-stained cheeks, his expression was nothing but gentle love. Hey, sweetheart. Ready to go home? Am I in trouble, Daddy? Not even a little bit. He helped her pack her tablet and earth rocks into her school bag. Sometimes accidents happen. The important thing is how we handle them. As they walked out of the classroom together, Jake noticed how the corridor had cleared. How the other parents stepped aside with something that looked very much like respect. He'd been calm for 8 months on Kepler Station, playing the role of the harmless maintenance worker. Turns out, the galaxy had learned something today about what happened when Deathworlders stopped being calm. And Jake Morrison was perfectly fine with that.